All right, everybody. Welcome to the Bring On Success program. Today, I have a special treat for you. A very old friend of mine. And Kevin, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was going to say. Remember, I told you I lost my train of thought just before we started the podcast. Well, it's an old friend of mine. So honestly, Kevin Knebl is not an old friend of mine. I've just recently been introduced to him, but it seems like he and I are brothers or close friends because we have a lot in common. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Hey, Jim, great to be here. And we go way back 5 or 10 minutes.
It really hasn't been that long, but when we started talking, we were like twins, Siamese twins. We
Yeah.
connected somewhere. And this is going to be a really exciting 35, 45 minutes, I'm telling you. And this is for everyone watching. I don't know if Kevin's going to enjoy it, but I am. And hopefully everyone else will. So Kevin's an international speaker. He's an author. He's a trainer. And apparently joie de vivre coach, which means the joy of life. And I know all that. And actually, that shouldn't be a far stretch for Kevin to understand either, because I had mentioned to him that I actually grew up in Canada. So I had to understand French. So you throw French into this thing. What's all that about?
At the end of the day, everybody's looking for the same thing. Everybody's looking to have a good experience of life. Everybody's looking
Yep.
to be happy. And I don't speak a lot of French. I speak a little bit of French. I actually have a daughter named Calais,
Ooh,
Calais, which is
oui,
a city in France.
oui, oui.
But for those people that have heard of it before, joie de vivre means joy of living. And that's
Yeah.
really, at the end of the day, how I help my clients.
Yeah. And I know you do. You have such enthusiasm. And I love what you do. And when I heard about you and what you do, I'm like, I got to get this guy on the Bring On Success podcast, because this program is all about success for entrepreneurs and small business owners and just anyone in life. And really, what we're about to talk about stretches everywhere. If you're employed, self-employed, you own a business, if you're running a Fortune 500 company, or you're just a spouse at home, all of this stuff's going to be useful, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say just a spouse. I'd say a
Oh,
spouse.
well, I'm so
But
sorry.
but 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 um but what you're referring to is a principle.
Mhm.
Gravity is a principle. Gravity works the same everywhere, no matter whether you're male, female, old, young, whatever. When a person understands that gravity works the same everywhere, they can count on it. And what you just said there is profound in its implications. When a person understands the principles of success, they're going to have a more successful life, whether it's in their business life, their personal life, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I work with home service providers primarily.
Yeah.
And my job is to really help them not just get exposure. We hear that I can get you exposure.
Right.
Well, in some places, if you expose yourself, you actually end up in jail. So we're not talking just about exposure, right?
Janet Jackson at the Super Bowl.
There you go. We're really talking about getting your name out there. But
Yeah.
when you do it, it shouldn't be all about you. So we need to educate people.
Yeah.
And you know, I tell this all the time, Kevin, all the time. I tell people, or I'll ask them. I'll be speaking in front of a room, and I'll ask people, point to the most important person in the room. And some people will point to their boss who's sitting at the table, or to the last speaker, or maybe me because I'm on stage. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
everyone thinks they're the most important person. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, you need to convey your message to them. And so this is where I'm going to have Kevin take off now with the know, like, and trust, and just spoiling people in a way other people don't. It's all yours, bud.
Well, you didn't ask me anything.
Yeah, I did. I'm giving you the floor. I want I want you to tell everybody why it's so important
All right.
for us as people who are
Mhm.
really trying to market and sell ourselves, let's be fair, to not think of ourselves right now, but to
Yeah.
think of the others. So we want to touch them in many different ways, whether it's an email or it's a card in the mail. We're sending them maybe a gift, but it's not a gift with our name on it. It's a
Yeah.
gift about something that they care about. So we really have to know these people relatively well and make them feel special.
That's correct. So back around 1993, 94, I was a piano player in New York City, and then I got married and I started having kids, and I realized I needed to make more money. This was before Al Gore invented the internet. So I had to go get a newspaper and look in the classifieds and find a job. And I was forced to get into sales, which, if I can just be frank, a sex change would have been more in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
So
I get it.
I cut off my 18-inch long hair and I went to work, and scared out of my mind. But I was very blessed that I had some mentors that taught me that long-term success in business and sales and life, similar to gravity, long-term success doesn't come down to your product knowledge. It comes down to obviously your understanding of your product or service, combined with an ever deepening understanding of human nature.
Mm.
So I never really studied traditional sales stuff. I went and got How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. There it is. Yeah, exactly.
Mine's
I went,
old.
I
Mine goes
went,
back to the 60s, man. This is like ancient. I love it.
and then I got The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
Most people are familiar with Think and Grow Rich, but they don't know that he actually wrote this book first. And this one is highlighted, written in the mark. So I started studying success. I started studying people skills, and I ended up becoming the top salesperson for numerous companies, blah, blah, blah. Around 93, 94, there was a gentleman named Bob Berg. I don't know if you know that name, Jim, but Bob Berg is an author and a speaker down in Florida. He's been doing it far longer than I have, and he's literally a genius. And he came out on stage and he said the following sentence, which literally changed my life, and I'm not being overly dramatic. He said, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust.
Sure.
That hit me like a ton of bricks, because I'm a very simple guy. Simple is not stupid. Simple just means I don't see any reason to make things more complex than they need to be. So when I heard that statement, all things being equal, just means you're good at whatever the hell it is you do for a living. That's all that means.
Mm-hmm.
It was the second half of the statement that blew my mind. People will do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. So in my simple, naive mind, I said, well, then I just need to get really good at know, like, trust. Because if I get really good at know, like, trust, and I combine that with all things being equal, meaning whatever my product or service is at the time, I'm probably going to do well. So I started studying How to Win Friends and Influence People and all that kind of stuff, and I did very well. And to your point, most people do not study people skills. So therefore, there's very little evidence to suggest that they're at any level other than an amateur as it relates. Now, when I say this, it sounds like I'm being arrogant. I'm not being arrogant. When I get on stage, similar to you, I was on stage in Phoenix last week. I'm looking out at the audience and I say to them, would everybody agree with me that we become better at the things we study and we tend to remain amateurs at the things we don't study? And of course, everybody went, yes, because even a child could understand that. And then I said, is there anybody in the room that could stand up and tell me the last 5 books you've read on people skills? And nobody stood up. I said, how about the last 4? 3, 2, 1. Crickets. And then I looked at the audience and I said, take this in the loving way I want you to take this. You just told me that if you don't study something, you are an amateur. And now you're admitting to me that you've never studied people skills. What evidence do you have to suggest that you are anything other than an amateur at people skills? Now, the open-minded people in the audience understood where I was coming from, because I love them enough to tell them the truth. The people with the fragile egos and the low self-image and all that, at that moment, they shut me off, right? Mm-hmm. But it doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter how good the teacher is if the student isn't willing and eager to learn, right? So I started 20, 30 years ago studying know, like, trust, sincere and authentic know, like, trust, not manipulation techniques, not persuasion techniques, but real. And the irony, the paradox, is that it's so unbelievably simple that when we take a sincere interest in other people, If they're a relatively rational person, they'll probably take a sincere interest in you too. So I'm giving you a long answer to your short question. When I communicate with people, I understand that everybody has tattooed invisibly on their forehead WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Yep.
That's human nature. So I take a sincere interest in other people, not a manipulative interest to look like I'm really interested. No, it's just so much easier to be really interested, right? People come to me and are like, how do I appear this and how do I appear that? And I go, why don't you just do that instead of trying to appear that, right? So every communication we have with another person conveys a feeling. Most people don't know this because they've never been taught this.
Mm-hmm.
So when I take a sincere interest in you, Jim, and I start asking you questions about, tell me about growing up in Montreal. Tell me about how you went to 12th grade 2 times. And for the listeners, tell them that story another time. When I started asking you questions about how did you end up running the radio station in Hartford, right? When you didn't even want to get into radio, that conveys a feeling to you because you start to see, oh, Kevin is really interested in me.
And he's listening to me.
Not as a manipulation technique, but and right, and I'm listening. Most people are not listening. Most people are thinking or trying to come up with the next question to appear to be smart or whatever. I do the total opposite. If I'm thinking when you're talking to me, I'm not listening. Because the mind can't do 2 things at once.
Yeah.
So when I get into a conversation with another person, to the best of my ability, I just try to listen, just be present and hear what they're saying. Listen to the tone, listen to what they're not saying. Listen to this isn't Freudian. This is just taking a sincere interest in other people. So when I communicate with prospects, when I communicate with clients or whatever, I try to keep a ratio where only a percentage of my communication is about my product or service, but the majority of my communication is pure curiosity. The thing most people need to get better at is they just need to go back to a childlike state of curiosity. When we show up curious and not trying to look like the smartest person in the room, life just goes a hell of a lot better. So any of that makes sense, Jim?
Yeah, no, it all makes sense. And, it goes back to what I was saying. The most important person in the room is each individual person.
Yeah.
Some of us aren't all that bad. And even though we're still number one, okay, because when there's a fire in that room, we're going to be looking for that exit, trust me. But we may let some other people go first.
Like George Costanza on Seinfeld when he's plowing everybody over.
Exactly, Costanza. Oh my gosh. So really what we need to do is we need to think about others, but how we can actually separate ourselves from 99.9% of other people. So Kevin, have you heard of someone by the name of Mark Zuckerberg?
Isn't he that rich geek?
Yeah. He went to Harvard and he left before he graduated and he started this little business.
Yeah.
It's actually debatable. Apparently, it depends who you talk to whether he started it or not, but he was somewhat involved. In any case, he's out in California, I think, doing his thing. And so Mr. Zuckerberg, love the guy because he's got some great tools out there that help a lot of us. Yeah. He really messed up my game because before Facebook became popular, and I'm still good at this, but I was very good at, and still am good at, remembering people's birthdays. Oh. So if it was a certain birthday or a certain date, I knew in my head whose it was. I'd dial them up. Didn't have to look at the calendar.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is today is Zuckerberg says, what's your birthday? And then he tells everybody online. And so I'm not special anymore. So that was my special thing. And it was great because how do you remember my birthday? I'm like, I'm just good with dates. And it's true. I was, and I was pretty proud of it, but it was fun. And so that was my thing. Something else I like to do, and I'm giving out ideas for people here. Something else that I like to do today, which people really won't forget if you do it right, is connect people with other people that are helpful to them. So just don't think about the fact they like apple pie and send them the pie of the month club thing. Oh yeah, that's fine. That's good because they're going to like that and get fat. But if you know that they always wanted to meet so-and-so, or they really like this type of speaker or so forth, try to connect them with someone, and that can make a big difference.
It's huge. It's huge. And the only way you would know that is because you took a sincere interest in them, right? When I work with my clients, I am curious about my clients, but I'm also curious about my clients' world. So I'll find out, like, Jim, we're not going to do it here on this interview, but if you and I were having a cup of coffee or a tequila, I would be finding out, is there a Mrs. Jim? Does Jim have kids? And if he has kids, how old are those kids? And if they're in college, what are they pursuing? Because then my mind can go, how can I deliver as much value to Jim as humanly possible, not just in the realm of his podcast and stuff like that, but see, if I can help Jim, Jim will love me. But if I can help somebody that Jim loves, Jim will love me a long time.
Oh
But
my goodness.
now
Oh my,
that's
yes.
now I have to be careful how I say this, because to a cynical mind, what I just said sounds manipulative.
But
it's,
it makes everyone feel good. I'm going to interrupt you. There's a three-way win there, because I feel good, my family member feels good, and you actually feel good because we feel good, and that is important. And so and I'm going to stop you for a sec, because if I don't say this, I'm going to forget what I'm going to say, okay? Because we talked about this before we started today, and I'm like, I keep forgetting stuff. And so I'm almost going to forget it again. So this is really important. And actually, I believe I heard it in this book as well, but I've always felt this, and this is so true. No one does anything they don't want to do,
yes,
unless they have a gun to their head. So some
yes,
people will say, bless his heart, he volunteers his time at the soup kitchen.
yeah,
Yes, he's doing it because it makes him feel good. Now, it's also a good thing, but trust me, the day he wakes up and says that's a chore, he ain't coming unless there's a gun to it. Like, literally, he has to do it.
right.
And so when we genuinely do things we love doing, it shows, and there's a three-way win there.
Yeah, I will not engage in any relationship or transaction unless it's a win-win-win. I just won't.
Yeah.
Because long term it doesn't make sense. In the Law of Success, and also in Think and Grow Rich on page 54, is a self-confidence formula which has 5 components. And the 5th one is, I fully realize that no wealth or position can long endure unless built upon truth and justice. Therefore, I will engage in no transaction which does not benefit all whom it affects. I will succeed by attracting to myself the forces I wish to use and the cooperation of other people. I will induce others to serve me because of my willingness to serve others. I will eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing love for all humanity, because I know that it goes on and on, right? Now, these are just simple success principles. But what most people don't realize is that either consciously or subconsciously, they look at business as a limited sum game. Someone has to win and someone has to lose.
Yeah.
By definition, that is not a winnable game. But what you and I are playing is a different game. We're playing the game of win-win. And so unless it's a win-win situation, by definition, someone's losing. That is not a good long-term strategy.
No, because ultimately everyone will lose. If someone's losing, the loser will take the winner down. The so-called winner.
And all we're talking about right now are simple principles. I mean, Zig Ziglar used to say it, right? You can get anything you want when you help enough other people get what they want.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's the same thing, right?
It's
gravity is the same thing everywhere. Success principles are effectively mental gravity. Yeah.
Kevin, it's interesting. Some people in their businesses. So let's take a small business or a self-employed person. Some people work much harder than they need to if they would just leverage a bit. And that sounds that's not really, a fair word, but it's true. If you leverage relationships
Mhm.
in a good way, though,
Mhm.
okay, not contrived, not just for you, but if you could genuinely help others,
Yes.
as Zig Ziglar says, if you help enough others get what they want, you get what you want, and help them live their dream,
Yeah.
help them succeed in their business or their personal life,
Yeah.
it will come back to you. And sometimes sowing those seeds can be a lonely thing because it could take a long time to get the love back. And not all will give back, by the way. Most won't.
Yeah.
They won't. But they'll think good of you. They won't think bad of you. And
Mhm.
one day you're going to open up a door and it's going to be huge because you've been giving. And so many people do this, right? That they're like, I'm keeping things close here, and I don't need anyone's help, and I don't want to think of them. It's all about me. I got to make a paycheck today, and they're not
Yeah.
thinking about the abundance of everything, everybody. And there's only a small percentage, Kevin, do that. Do you know what the numbers are? Where what percentage of people actually are like this, where they're open and giving and helping others?
I would say 2 to 5%.
Okay, that sounds about right. That's what I would guess.
Yeah, and I'm going to sound very philosophical with what I'm about to say, but I'm not trying to be Aristotle. Anything that I say that sounds philosophical, I will always back up with practical application,
Fair
because
enough.
I don't really see a lot of use in pontificating on navel int, right? But I do have a philosophical streak, but I'm happy to always back it up with practical application. The only reason that people are struggling is because they don't understand how life works.
Mm.
Now, this goes back to what I said before. Wouldn't you agree with me that to the level that we study something, we leave amateurville and we enter professionalville? And anybody with a rational mind would have to agree with that. And then if you ask them, well, tell me what you've done to deepen your understanding of how life works, they're going to look at you like you have three heads. Well, what do you mean? That alone is the answer, right?
Yep.
The fact that they're like, I don't understand the question, there's the answer, right? So if a person hasn't really studied the nature of life and how life works, what evidence would there be to say that they really understand what the hell they're doing, right?
Yeah.
So the more a person understands how life works, common sense would say that their life works, whether it's the business life, whether it's the professional life. So most people are studying the wrong thing. Most people are studying things like, how do I get my foot in the door? How do I perfect my elevator pitch? How do I perfect my marketing? And I'm not putting down elevator pitches or marketing. There's a time and a place for that. But the thing that the 800-pound elephant in the room is the fact that the reason people struggle in business isn't because they don't understand business. It's because they don't understand life. Okay. They don't understand how it works. And to your karma thing that you said a few minutes ago, karma's only a bitch if you are.
Wow. Well, right, garbage in, garbage out, and so
Right.
if you're giving of yourself, it's important to do that. And if you've got positive vibes, it comes back. If you're negative, and I'm thinking of politicians. Okay, politicians almost always don't run on why you should hire me to run the country.
Right.
It's why you shouldn't hire him or her to do it.
Yep.
Which is the wrong thing. I'll tell you a quick story, Kevin, here. Sometimes when I go on stage, I'm in front of an audience.
Yeah.
They don't know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't even talk about what I do. I'll talk about something that is good for them, their lives. And what's interesting is, of course, after I get off stage, people say, "Oh, that was great. It touched me. Who are you?" And so forth. And it inevitably leads to business later, because I wasn't trying so hard to sell them anything. I was trying to help them and give them something, and they felt close to me. And what is it? People know, like, trust. Oh, how about that?
Yeah. It's there's a tremendous irony and paradox there. And I'm a huge fan of irony and paradox. Um, I was blessed to be the top salesperson for 4 different companies in 4 different industries, including being the top salesperson in the world for an international consulting company with 350 salespeople in 15 countries.
That's great.
I mention that not to impress your viewers that I could sell ice cream to Eskimos. I mention it to establish credibility. If I say something related to sales or referral creation or client acquisition, I'm not talking theory, right? A 600-pound person that gives you exercise advice is talking theory, okay? A broke financial advisor that's giving you financial advice is talking theory. When a guy like me who's done very well in sales talks sales, I'm not talking theory. Mm-hmm. So I look at my sales career, and it's hilarious to me, because if somebody looks and goes, how the hell did you become such a good salesperson? If I want to be Jersey, because I was born and raised in New Jersey where they eat their young, and if I want to be a little bit of a wise ass, I say the way I became the top salesperson was I looked at all the other salespeople and I did exactly the opposite of what they were doing. Now, on one hand, that's a very wise ass answer, but on the other hand, it's actually 100% accurate because I don't like it when people are salesy with me. So then why the hell would I be salesy with somebody else? But I do like it when people take a sincere interest in me. So therefore I take a sincere interest in it. So the irony here is that in order for a person to succeed in business and sales, they need to see a tree. You can always tell a tree by the fruit it bears, right? So look at what other people are doing and just study that. I mean, the world is a classroom, and every morning we wake up and it's like, okay, are we present? Right? Are we, Kevin Knebl, are you here? Present, right? Okay, what can I learn today, or what can I deepen my understanding of, and how can I suspend my opinions and my beliefs and just deal in reality? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man, I love talking with you, brother. We could talk for days.
It's actually a holiday weekend. I've got till Tuesday if you want to keep.
I got nothing going on, man. Let's just
keep it rolling. So I'm sure you've heard of Joe Girard.
Love him.
Okay, #1 car salesman at the time, Guinness Book of World Records, and he did something very simple, and so. And back me up and or correct me. There it is. The card, right?
Postcard. Yeah.
And every day he was sending out hundreds or thousands of cards, literally, to people. And it didn't matter who they were, in his life. He just did it. Go ahead.
Do you remember what he wrote? He wrote 3 words on the postcard. Do you remember what those 3 words are?
Oh gosh, I just recently read his book again, or the book about it. Well, actually, it was his book. It was something simple.
I like you.
Yeah. That's all I did. He would even send birthday cards to people, not on their birthday. And then when they corrected him, he would then put it in his Rolodex under the right birthday and send it out. He did all kinds of stuff just to touch people, but he always did it in a great way. And most car salespeople did it the wrong way, and they don't last. He was award-winning, literally, Guinness Book of World Record award-winning. And
so I take some of the principles that he taught, and I use that in my stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I give him the credit, just like I give Bob Berg the credit for the no-like trust. I'm not a plagiarizer.
Sure.
Bob Berg came up with the no-like trust thing. Joe Girard came up with the postcard thing. I just Kevinize it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And these are all things that we can apply. Yeah. We can literally adopt it and apply it. I'll tell you what I think, Kevin, is the #1 problem with most humans.
What's that?
It's a couple of things. They're impatient.
They're impatient because they don't understand how life works.
Yep. Impatience, the big one. They don't think it's going to work for them. It's going to work for someone else, not for me. Yep. And they're too self-centered. Not necessarily in a bad way, like super conceited. They just always think, how can I get my foot in the door? How can I sell that person? How can I get more commission? How can I? Yeah. Instead of I, it should be you, and maybe eventually we, but it's got to be them first, right?
Would you agree that the couple of things that you just outlined that are the challenges that people deal with are really all in the same bucket of they don't understand how life works?
Nope, they don't. I'm still figuring it out, and I'm old. But no, I'll tell you what's really exciting. No. You and I are the same age, okay? So
Yeah.
what's really, really exciting about this, though, is, people are like, Jim, aren't you concerned about losing your hair or your muscle or your good looks, whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I can't do anything about that, right? The calendar moves on, but my mind expands, and I really wish I had what I had in my brain now back then, but it's not too late. And so for everyone out there is like, well, whatever, time's passed, I can't do that.
Mm.
You can, and you should, but I'm honestly not so sure, and I'm not here to offend anybody, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure everybody can actually do this, because they won't. It's not they can't, they won't. You agree?
Well, again, I'm going to say something that's going to sound philosophical, but I'll back it up with practical application. Most people's primary challenge is that they don't understand themselves.
Mm.
And because they don't understand themselves, by extension, they don't understand others. So to the degree that we understand ourselves, we actually understand others. That's why all roads ultimately lead to self-awareness. Now that sounds very profound. It's not. It's simple. If I don't understand how my mind works, how the hell could I understand how your mind works? Right?
That's fair.
So most people spend no time deepening their understanding of how their mind and thought works. But I'm going to make a claim that to the degree that you understand how your mind and thought works, your life will work better. Now, initially, that will sound very philosophical or spiritual to people, but it's extremely practical, because every experience you've ever had and ever will have, by definition, pass through the filter of mind and thought. So to the degree that you understand mind and thought, you understand your experiences. To the degree you don't understand mind and thought, you don't understand your experiences. You will misappropriate cause and effect. You will think COVID had an impact on my business. No, it didn't. Well, yes, it did, Kev. Well, wait a minute. A second ago, you told me you agreed that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to people they know, like, and trust. Nowhere in that sentence was the word COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't end with the know, like, trust thing, as long as there's no COVID, right? So what people don't understand is the all-encompassing nature of that statement. It covers, it's like gravity. There's no exceptions, right? Most people have some form of an exception in their mind, usually at a subconscious level. So people just need to understand themselves better. When you understand yourself better, you relax. And when you relax, the other person relaxes.
True.
Right? When you understand yourself better, you cut yourself a little more slack, and you, by extension, you cut other people a little more slack. There's unlimited benefits that come from understanding yourself a little bit better, but they're not always immediately apparent, because people immediately, oh, I got to make a paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking at short term. They're not playing a long game. I'm not denying you need to make a paycheck. I'm not denying you need to make a mortgage payment or whatever. I'm not denying that. But people need to understand that they're playing a long game. And most people's idea of long-term planning is dinner. No, you need to play a much longer game called life, right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, just ask financial advisors and all the studies out there that show how much people have saved for retirement. Someone who's 60 years old, how much they don't have and should, because they spend it. Not only that, they may be actually in debt on the other side. It's the same thing with what Kevin's talking about with how we grow, how we live our lives. And I talk about running a marathon all the time. The sprint might be, what are we having for dinner?
Sure.
Making payroll, that type of thing in our business. But I read a book. every week. Now, I don't always read it. I'll listen to it on Audible, but I consume, and sometimes I'll consume a book many times. So I still include that as once a week. If not, my numbers go down. It doesn't sound as good, right? So, but it's important to continually educate. And for the people who say, I put my 12 years in that prison of high school, and I put my 4 years in college, and I'm not opening another book. I'm not, because I don't have to, because that was the rule. Graduate from high school and or college. Maybe you even got an MBA, and you're like, I'm not opening a book again. And what's interesting is I was a lousy student. Lousy student, graduated from high school twice, and that's a story I'll tell later to everybody. And I did go to college for 4 years, and I didn't have a stellar GPA, but since then, my education has gone up exponentially. It's huge. And I educate every day. And one reason why I do this podcast is to help all of you. But here's a secret: if you teach, you learn more. Right? So learn, just go to a conference, read books, start a podcast, and find your Kevin, right? And have him come on, because he knows a lot about things I don't know, and he's helping all of us. And there are these laws out there. And you see, I think a lot of people have trouble, Kevin, when they can't see it and touch it, right? They're like, well, that sounds like a big investment. It's like taking vitamins. How do you really know when, if those vitamins are going to let you live to 80 or 90? You don't even know, right? They're like, no, you pee that one out and it's not going to work. And so some of this is like that, right? Where is it really worth it? And it is a long game.
Yeah, to teach is to learn twice, right? And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about that if you really want to understand something, attempt to teach it. Because that will show you how well you really know it or don't know it, right? And it'll show you areas where maybe I need to deepen my understanding here a little bit more. Maybe I don't understand this as much as I thought I did, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't really think life is all that difficult. I think that the way we tend to think about life can be difficult. But life itself is really, now there are people listening to this going, come on, Kev, you're in la la land. No, I'm not. I've got a boatload of evidence behind me backing me up. Anything you want to get better at, there are resources for you to get better at it, right? So that's why I held up Law of Success before and how to win friends and influence. If somebody says to me, Kevin, I want to become successful, I say, well, what are you doing to deepen your understanding of success? I'm not doing anything. Well, then I don't think you really want to become successful, because if you did, there'd be evidence, right? So I'm not trying to beat them up.
Oh, I love it.
I'm not trying to beat them up, and I'm talking very bluntly on this podcast. But I mean, if somebody said to me, Kevin, I want to become a brain surgeon, what are you doing about it? Oh, I'm watching YouTube videos on brain surgery. Good. That's a good start. That's better than nothing, right? But if somebody says, oh, I want to make more money, well, what are you doing to deepen your understanding of the principles about money? Well, I'm not doing anything about it. Well, I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm not saying you're smart or stupid. I'm just saying pursuit is the proof of desire. Pursuit is the evidence of desire. If you tell me, Kevin, I'm interested in making more money, there should be evidence to support that. Kevin, I'm interested in losing weight. There should be evidence to support that, right? Kevin, I'm looking to understand a little bit more how life works, because it seems it's not working so well for me right now. There should be evidence to support that. So when a person says, I read all the books by the time I was in 12th grade, I don't want to read anymore, even though I've never seen Dr. Phil's show, I'm aware that he has a line that goes, how's that working out for you? Right? Kevin, I'm never going to read another book. How's that working out for you? Right? Well, it doesn't seem to be working that well. Interesting. What do you take away from that, Homer? Right? Well, I don't tell people what to do. I just ask questions and let them come to their own understanding. Otherwise, I'm forcing something on them. They'll be resistant. It's just easier for me to say, you know, is your business growing as quickly as you want it to grow? No, it's not, Kev. Why do you think that is? Oh, it's because of COVID. Oh, it's because of this. Oh, it's because of that. And I go, but wait a minute, there's other people that are in your industry that are growing faster than you're growing, and they're also dealing with COVID. So it can't be that. We're smarter than that. Let's look someplace else, right? Let's look for another solution, because it's got to be there. If somebody in your industry is succeeding at a level that you're not succeeding at, they're clearly doing or not doing something that you're doing or not doing. Let's investigate. Let's get curious, right? See, all roads lead to curiosity. Once we feel like we know it all, if you're not growing, you're rotting, right? God, please don't ever let me not be curious. The people you and I meet that are know-it-alls, they're not curious.
No, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. The ones that know everything and they're like, I don't need to hear anything from you because I already know that. I already know it.
If you really understood it, you'd have evidence.
Yep. I soak up everything from everybody. And even if I think I know it, I still will get more from that person. So Kevin, for instance, when I first heard about you, I heard a lot of know, like, and trust. I know all about that. I've been doing know, like, and trust forever. I could write a book on it. Maybe I will. Yeah. But I'm like, wait a second. This actually makes me very curious. Let's see what this guy really knows about it. Let's see if he knows more than me. Of course you do. So, which is great. And I'm not too arrogant or foolish to not want to suck it up. And then what I'm doing here with this podcast is I'm opening this up to other people, but I'm going to watch this podcast myself many times. And I might break it up and take excerpts and make them small little videos and send them out to people to help them. And it's just incredible. But I will say this, and I think Tony Robbins said this. I think he said, everyone who's here today, there's 5,000 people here today in the audience. Only 3% of you are going to use this. Yeah. What?
And it's a choice.
These people are paying $5,000 to be sitting there. And only 3% are going to use it. And by the way, that $5,000 investment in dollars and whatever time it was could be millions over your lifetime.
It's exactly the same as a gym. I use the gym metaphor all the time. If everybody joins the gym in December because they're making their New Year's resolutions, right? And then the gym is busy in January and February, but by March or April, it's an echo chamber. So if you went to a gym owner and you asked the gym owner, what percentage of people that sign up for a gym membership consistently come to the gym and work out for the next 12 months? I would predict that the gym owner's answer would be the same as the answer, the same that you asked me before when you said, Kevin, what percentage of people understand that success in life is really about helping other people? I would predict probably 2 to 5% of the people that join a gym go to the gym consistently. But I'm not I'm not putting down. I'm not condemning the other 95%. You see, you can't get offended by facts. Now, let that sink in, folks, because we're living in a culture right now where people are getting offended by everything. Okay. Yeah. The reason they're getting offended by everything, by the way, is because they don't understand who they are. Okay. Because to the degree that you're easily offended, that's the degree to which you are very shaky on your beliefs. Okay. If I say to you, Jim, gravity doesn't exist, you don't get pissed at me.
No, because I think you're crazy.
But if you're a Christian and I say Jesus didn't die for your sins, you get pissed. Now, wait a minute. If you're so sure that Jesus died for your sins, oh God, where's Kevin going with this? Right? If you're so sure about that, wouldn't you have also gotten offended by the gravity doesn't exist comment? Right? So what most people don't understand is that their beliefs are so shaky that you can always tell how much somebody understands or believes in something by how easily they're offended. Okay. So I forgot where I was going with that, man.
Now you sound like me. Now you sound like me. The moral of the story, everybody, is that you need to educate, So go out there and learn from others.
Can
You
I make
got
one
it.
more comment? Some came back in my head.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with reading lots of books. I'm a big fan of doing that. I read lots of books like you do too. But most people are under a delusion. I need to learn more. I need to learn more. I need to learn more. Actually, maybe you just need to deepen your understanding of some of the basics.
Yes.
There's a reason why I've read this book 32 times. And if I'm allowed to live, as long as I want to live, I'll read it another 32 times, right? Because yes, I'm reading new stuff, but I'm deepening my understanding of the basics, right? Vince Lombardi, first day of every football season, he's with a bunch of guys in the locker room that have been playing football since they were little kids. And the first day of every season, Vince Lombardi holds up a football and goes, "Gentlemen, this is a football," right?
Yep.
And we're gonna focus on blocking and tackling, which is what they were focusing on when they were 6 years old, right? So for me, every morning I get up, and when I'm taking my shower, I'm reciting from memory the 30 principles that are in How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm reciting from memory the self-confidence formula that's in Think and Grow Rich on page 54, because I understand that my success today, although it may appear that it's going to come down to my knowledge of this or this product or this technique or that technique, I see through the illusion and I realize, no, my success today is going to come down to my ability to sincerely and authentically connect with other people. And if I understand that, then maybe I should first thing in the morning train my mind to be curious, to take a sincere interest in other people, to not criticize, condemn, or complain, to give honest and sincere appreciation, all the Dale Carnegie stuff. It's the simplest stuff in the world, but people think it needs to be more complex. No, it doesn't. Just focus on simple. Simple always wins.
I totally agree. Focus on simple and try to take some of the focus off yourself and think of others.
Of course.
Just think of others. I mean, you've got to take care of yourself.
Yes.
But if you're thinking of yourself 100% of the time, even if you just took 5% and thought about others,
yeah,
it will come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Zig Ziglar says, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll get what you want.
But you don't do it so that the universe owes you.
Nope.
And I know you know this, Jim. I'm just clarifying this for the viewer.
Yep.
You do it because you can't outrun your character. And a natural byproduct of taking a sincere interest in others is they take a sincere interest in you. But you don't do it as a manipulation technique, right? You do it because that's who you are in your essence. You care about other people. Again, it's just full of irony and paradox, right?
Yeah. And so I guess what's challenging for some people who are watching this, they might honestly be saying, I'm not a good person. I can't do this. Not in me. It's not who I am. I feel bad because I'm selfish, and I can see an issue there. So you need to try to, be different without changing yourself too much. Kevin, you wanted to say?
Let's just talk about joie de vivre for a quick moment.
Okay.
And I could go literally for days on what I'm about to say next. When a person says, I'm not a good person, or I don't deserve this, or whatever, what they're really saying, and this is going to sound very woo-woo to some of your listeners, but it is not woo-woo. What they're really saying is, I'm having thoughts, and I'm considering these thoughts to be reality, and I'm not seeing them as clouds passing through the sky. Mm-hmm. I alluded to this 20 minutes ago. Most people have almost no understanding of how the mind and thought work. Not because they're stupid. It's just not something they've invested time in studying. I help my clients. Of course, I help my clients make lots of money. That's easy. That's not hard. Once you understand the principles behind money, it becomes as easy as breathing. But I help my clients not only get success in the material world, money, cars, houses, savings accounts, and all this other stuff, because it doesn't matter how much of that you have if you're a miserable SOB, right? So I help my clients make a lot of money, but I also help them deepen their understanding of how the mind and thought works, which leads them to a more happy experience of life. Okay. So when a person says, I'm not good enough, I understand, I need to help that person understand a little bit more about how the mind works. They're being tricked. They're being tricked into believing. You see, here's a radical thing. Every thought you have is not fact. You don't have to believe everything you think.
Agreed.
Let that one sink in, folks. Because most people at a subconscious level, they're thinking, I'm thinking this, it must be true.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Well, fear is not always real. It's our perception, right?
It's all perception.
Yeah.
It's all perception. And again, I could go for days on this, that when you help a person understand a little bit more about how the mind and thought works, life just naturally becomes easier and more enjoyable. When the person's really concerned, really just thinking about themselves all the time, they have no idea how their mind and thought works. None.
You're right. And on
None.
that note, we're going to conclude. But I will say all of Kevin's information is located in the description of this podcast. Reach out to him. He's a lot of fun, but he can really help you in your business a lot. Obviously, if you've watched this video, you're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much here. And it's great for you and the people on your team. Kevin, once again, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me, Jim. It's been a pleasure. I hope we get to cross paths in real life before too long.
I'm sure we will.